Welcome, everybody, to Stay Curious. I'm your host, Mark Marquez. So glad you joined me today with a true historian of spaceflight, Mr. Nick Thomas. Hello, Nick.
Hello, Mark. Good to see you.
Well, great to see you. He's been on a little sabbatical for various reasons, but we're always glad when Nick sits next to me. And always fun to talk about Wally Schirra.
Oh yeah,
And
it's
we're going to have wall to wall Wally
yeah,
today.
pretty much Wally Schirra month, October.
Yes, it is. And you got to have a adult beverage with him a time or two, I
Yep,
believe,
yep, yep.
and got to know him very well. And that's what Nick does for over 38 years. You've been the lead communicator now, but he's been involved with Kennedy Space Center Visitors Complex. We call him the astronaut wrangler because now you deal with the astronaut of the day. And that is one of the best things that Delaware North does, I think, out there is make the access twice. You can hear an astronaut give their talk and go get an autograph from them for free. And
Nope,
that's really neat.
nobody else in the world does what we do. You can come there 7 days a week, twice a day, and have a chance to speak with a veteran astronaut, and nobody else does that. So we really enjoy that distinction.
And many of you watching Stay Curious today have done just that. So you got
Hmm.
a question for Nick, jump in there, you newcomers. We've got quite a few Nicks since
Good.
this is an opportunity to listen to some space history from here from firsthand. Okay, you're not in the bleacher seats, you're on the sidelines there for some of these events, and then when you get to know astronauts that are 20 years or so removed from their last mission,
Yeah.
you hear some interesting things like I have with our shuttle guys.
Well, the privilege of the job is that you get to learn the history from the men and women who made it. So it's just the best kind of job I could ever hope for.
It is just like me here sitting here, and Marty Winkle, my co-producer. Marty, you doing a little uh, dressing
Engineering.
up here on the search. Marty, of course, the lunar module electrical engineer who then worked on the shuttle engines, the SSMEs, doing a little production here. And so y'all can hear Nick very well out there today, which this is actually October 13th, 2025. And a beautiful day after a beautiful Sunday on the Space Coast. Hope you're enjoying autumn wherever you're at. And send me a picture of your foliage or something because we down here in Florida, myself particularly, miss I go to the Blue Ridge, every year living in Tennessee and so forth. But Nick, just briefly tell everybody where you grew up so you're not as affected as fall like I am. But where you grow up and how'd you get in this dream job of yours?
I grew up in Daytona Beach, just about 50 miles up the road, and I was fascinated with the space program, the manned space program, from a very early age. At 5 years old, Alan Shepard launched on May 5th. So we watched it on the TV at home, and then we went out into the backyard and we could look up in the sky and see the rocket taking off over the palm trees. Now, you couldn't see the rocket proper, but you could see it when it went through the condensation layer and it laid that trail of condensation behind it. So from that point on, the nuns at school knew that I wasn't going to be in school on a launch day. But I understood that when I came back the next day that I had to stand in front of the class, I had to describe the launch, I had to explain the mission, and I had to answer at least three questions.
Hmm.
Later on after that, my father, seeing which way my life was going, he brought me to Titusville to watch every manned Saturn V launch from 12 miles away. We were privileged to get a couple of gold pass tours. I did have time in the flight crew training building inside the command module and lunar module simulator. We did a program landing on the moon from the landing burn to touchdown. And when we came out of the simulator, we were talking to the training instructor, and he had told us that the week before that the French ambassador to the United States had been there, and they'd given the gold badge tour, and he went through the simulator. But when they got to P64, when they're in the simulator, and at P64, the LEM pitches over and you get your first view of the surface. Well, they pitch over, and the French ambassador looks out the window, and there on the moon surface, he sees the Eiffel Tower. And the training instructor told me that for the German VIPs, they had the Brandenburg Gate. For the Italian VIPs, they had the Leaning Tower of Pisa. And for the Japanese VIPs, they had Mount Fujiyama. So they were prepared for everybody. But that was a good day. But that's just kind of a small overview of how I got here.
Well, the flight crew training building, legendary. Did they tear that down?
No, it's
Is it-
still standing. It stood for many years as part of the space station processing facility next door. And back then we had mock-ups of these ISS modules on the floor. And then upstairs you could walk across the bridge to the SSPF proper, go into a viewing gallery and look down on the high bay floor and see all this hardware being processed.
I did that.
And that's where I was stationed because I would tell people about the hardware and then answer questions and so forth. So I was in the SSPF for about 9 years, briefing the public on hardware as it was coming through. So that first building that you walked through, that was the old flight crew training building, and we, of course, had
Okay.
modified it to display all the mock-up modules on the floor there.
I have to look back at some pictures I took decades ago because I went on that tour. It was a separate bus tour,
Now, if you
and they took us out. And I remember looking down, and I saw Leonardo, I believe, was the segment that was being worked
Now,
on.
if you look back into that display room that we had,
Mhm.
if you looked up, you would see a walkway against the back wall with a red rail. And that was a walkway that visitors could walk across during the Apollo program and look down and watch the astronauts training. The astronauts didn't mind that except for Wally Schirra. Wally said that when he was training there, nobody was. He said spaceflight was not a spectator sport, but the rest of the mission commanders, they didn't mind the public coming through and watching what was going on. A lot of good stories about that as well.
Well, I need to get off the stick here myself and roll through some of this because we've got a little bonus. Nick's got racked up some slides of Artemis 2 that are some behind the scenes views of the hard training that our astronauts that are going to fly by the moon, hopefully as early as February, we'll see. We'll get an update from you real quick on that. Want to say hi to Gary Gerald and Tom Celentano. I'm sure shaking your hand
Hey,
a
Tom.
time or two.
Yep.
And Steve Jokums has met you at Shuttle Fest. Doug Forrest, our artist. Mark Thel was at Shuttle Fest, and I'm sure enjoyed talking to you. He's from Minnesota. And there's Tommy Usiak
Yeah, Tom.
and Dave Stangy, our number one. In hot pursuit of that number one is Rosalie Jubilee. So sit back, Rosalie, and you're going to hear a lot of wonderful stories. We've already heard a couple. That's why I said I better get along or we could do this for 2 hours. But wanted to mention that we are very active at our museum. We are a nonprofit. We find unique ways to raise some cash flow money. And Legends of NASA Dinner was a success with Mr. J. Honeycutt. And about every other month, we're going to follow with somebody at a delicious Italian meal at the Italian American Club of Melbourne. Bob Seek is going to do the honors and is excited to share his lifelong career with NASA. And Bob Seek is thought of as a launch director, but as you know, Nick, he was one of the architects of the shuttle management side that we couldn't have done without him.
Bob first came on board to the Space Center to the Cape when he was with the Air Force during the Gemini program. That's how
Meteorologist.
That's how far Bob goes.
Yeah.
Back.
Yeah. And very good guy. And like many of these men in their mid 80s, as long as they feel good and can get out and have their wife drive them somewhere, I'm just kidding. But they'll be talking.
We always said that if there was a hole to be found in the clouds, Bob Seek would find it.
That's
And
good.
we went into one launch day. I will recall on a shuttle launch, we went into a launch day. I think about 5 or 6 hours before a launch, we were 95% no go on weather. By the time we closed in on the T-9 hold, we'd gone to 90% green weather, and we launched that day. So there's just always something comforting about having Bob on the console.
Yeah, he could find the thread that needle safely, and you're going to hear some good stories and support us with a $40 meal, and we get a good share of that and take care of that wonderful Italian American Club, one of our peripheral sponsors of our museum. And Mr. J. Honeycutt and I have talked about our history of manned space flight. It's a brief history of human space flight. And the documentary we spent over a year doing. We're going to show it at a film festival, Nick, on Friday.
Okay.
And we never thought about that till we were asked to do it. So it's Friday at 6 o'clock. Those of you local here, it's in a beautiful theater in Melbourne. And we're not releasing the documentary yet to the world because we want to make some money on it. That's why Mr. Honeycutt, former Kennedy Space Center director, did this. It's his 28 minutes, and you've seen it.
Magnificent. It really
Well,
is.
thank you.
And when you look at the scope of that documentary, you can see not only the knowledge of the history, but you can see the pure love of the history. It really is very, very well done. And I agree with him that that documentary should be shown in every high school throughout the state and throughout the country. Because if you want a way of understanding not only the great technical achievement of the space program, but to understand the sense of, I don't know, the sense of awe and the sense of magic that people had about the space program as it was going through. I mean, that documentary really does encapsulate it.
Well, thank you very much. Jay wrote the script. It was a privilege to be part of it, putting some of the pictures together. His son-in-law, Sandy, did the video, and Nicole Stott, astronaut, did the voiceover, and she's got a Disney kind of voice. And by the way, she met the King of England, Marty, over the weekend, I'm
did
told,
she?
on Facebook. Yes,
Good for
somebody
her.
was telling me, did you see Nicole Stott? And she's running, her agent is worked with Buzz Aldrin. You know who I mean.
Yeah.
Anyway, I'm trying to get into the meat of the program because this gentleman does the same thing. The way he paints the colors of the American space program is red, white, and blue, and it's a legacy that's unlike any civilization on Earth, and why our government gives so little money, and why we have to struggle, to promote it. I don't know, but we're going to get to all that here. We have an auction a week from Saturday, auction number 40. So go check that out. We'll be talking about that all week. 350 lots to buy on there.
Nice.
And somebody who always buys heat shield stuff is Don Thomas. Astronaut Don Thomas is a heat shield collector and a good a customer of Chuck Jeffrey who does that. And we want, Marty.
Yeah, he also bought some of my Mylar at an auction.
Your Mylar, okay.
You got some of your Mylar in there?
Cool.
Yep.
All right.
He bought some about a couple
Don
of years
did?
ago. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Did you give him a good price, or was it on the
Went
auction?
to auction. I told him I would have given him some if he came to me, but
Yeah. Don will be here at our building with the Japanese in about another month.
Good.
So, but Marty,
the
go
one more
ahead.
thing that Robert Law is stating, it's King of the United Kingdom,
Ah, yes.
not England.
Well, you can get into. I still like to think of it as Great Britain, but I know you're not supposed to say that anymore.
Okay.
You're supposed to say the UK, or at the very least the Commonwealth.
Jump in your boat there, Robert Law, and scold me, okay, for not knowing my UK history there, all right? So, but you know what I meant. Anyway, happy birthday to somebody, an astronaut you worked with.
Yeah.
We all found him to be a fun
Wow.
gentleman. Michael Good
Yeah.
is 63 years old today.
Yeah.
Gosh, where's he born? Let me look that up real quick. What you got to say about Michael?
Mike, we started working with recently over at the Visitors Complex, but he just puts on such a good, I don't even want to call it a show. He gives a good briefing, if you will, not only of shuttle systems and of history and so forth, but he has got that conversational tone, I'll call it, where it's very relaxed, it's very informal, and it's a lot of fun. He's one of those people who, the moment you meet him, he puts you at ease. He's one of those people who is comfortable in his own skin, and just a great storyteller and a lot of fun to work with.
Gee, you're describing people from Ohio, like me, because he's a Buckeye from Parma,
Well,
Ohio.
we got a lot of Ohio
outside of
people in the
Toledo
office, yeah.
there. One of more than 24 astronauts there. I like it that he's an EVA guy. 125, he was on the last Hubble, and then 132 late in the mission, and he certainly would have been 2 or 3 more missions had the program extended. But he was on the 4 EVAs,
Mm-hmm.
and he's he's a Nittany Lion. He's a Notre Dame graduate there. So Air Force, and you look up on Facebook there. He's got a real good EVA picture. You can see his whole face sticking out in there. So happy 63rd birthday, man, Michael Good. I used to think 63 was kind of old there, but he's kind of yeah. He's just getting his legs.
We've all got 63 in the rearview mirror now, don't we?
Well, maybe I want to make one other comment, and then we're going to get into the program here with Artemis and Wally Schirra. These people don't have to do this. I really give it to them that they want to be in front of the American people and share one of the greatest chapters of exploration of mankind.
There's a lot of enjoyment to be had there, and there's also the feeling of a sense of giving back. You know, you're grateful to the public because, after all, they paid the bills to put you in space, as Charlie Walker likes to say. But the fact of the matter is, it's great to come back and talk to the general public who watch these things from their television set and so forth, and they still have the excitement about it. And these astronauts can come forward and they can describe these missions in such a way as they take away the mystery, but they still leave the mystique. And it is an opportunity, as I say, for the general public to come and speak to an astronaut face to face. And the one show we do, which is called Chat with an Astronaut, is the one they enjoy the most because it's very informal, small group of people, 40 people max, and they sit down and they just take questions from these folks and answer them informally and honestly, and quite often very humorously. So it is, I would say with them, it is a large part of it, it's a labor of love. It's also a sense of being able to come back and get in touch with the program, because many of them will tell you that just stepping on the property, you get that vibe, you get that buzz, you get that feeling of, okay, back in the saddle again. And it's just a good way to come back, recontact the program, as I'd say, get read back into the program, if you will, and just to come back and experience that vibe that only happens at Kennedy Space Center. I suppose it does at Johnson as well, but I like to think we've got a special one because we have the flight hardware, and this is where so much of the history has been made over the years, and it's great for the astronauts to come back and to reconnect with that, and as well as connecting with the general public.
I think that's an excellent way to put it. I can relate to that, having now 3 or 4 years of socializing with astronauts. They become invisible wherever they live. They can be as invisible as they want. All right. And I think about that grocery shopping, doing the things that you got to do, get gas, blah blah blah, quarrels at home, maybe, blah blah blah.
Well,
then you come here, then you put that blue suit on or that blue jacket.
Well, conversely, the favorite joke on campus is that you're there and you're in the blue bag and you're meeting people and so forth. And then when you finish the presentation, you step out of the theater and you put on the windbreaker, instant civilian.
Yeah, instant civilian. And I know a lot of humble astronauts
which comes in especially handy in the restroom.
In the restroom.
Because there have been a couple of unfortunate encounters there that were not a lot of fun.
I hear you.
Hey, can I have your autograph? Can you wait until I finish?
Oh, people have done that.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Huh. I ran into Charlie Walker one day in one, but I also stepped up to a urinal at the University of Tennessee to hear a talk of Harrison Schmitt, the last moonwalker, and guess who stood beside me there at the urinal there?
Well,
and I said that was very interesting. A moonwalker.
Two famous people that I've run into in the restroom were Alan Shepard, and then up in New York at the 21 Club, Frank Sinatra.
Oh my gosh, Frank Sinatra. That's cool. We'll talk about that later. Nick spent how many years in New York
5 years.
chasing your dream of being
years.
an actor? And I really like that chapter of your history, too. I was carrying a camera for the Associated Press at Madison Square Garden. Anyway, let's get on with what's going to happen. I hear the window's going to open February 5th. Is that what you're hearing?
That's currently the earliest they could launch. Now, officially, the launch is still targeted for April of next year. But if everything continues to go right, and continues to go on schedule, we could launch as early as February, perhaps as early as 5 February. There are a lot of things that had to be done. Right now, the stack is inside High Bay 3 of the Vehicle Assembly Building. The spacecraft is still in the what we used to call the canister rotation facility. It's now the LAST, the Launch Abort System facility. It's in the vertical. Checkouts are about completed and closeouts are ongoing. So the next item on the agenda is to take the command and service module over to the Vehicle Assembly Building, integrate it into the stack inside High Bay 3. And then before rollout, they are going to have a modified terminal countdown demonstration test inside the Vehicle Assembly Building, and the flight crew will take part. When they do get out to the pad, they'll do a nominal TCDT out there, or now it's being called a countdown demonstration test because it's got to be different for another program, right?
Right.
So
Unfortunately.
if everything goes well, we should roll out to the pad at the end of this year, and hopefully, as I say, target as early as February for a launch.
So you've got, and this is the profile.
Yeah,
they're
flight
they're
profile.
just going to go around the moon,
Right.
from
This-
about 5,000 miles away from it. right?
Strictly speaking, this is called the circumlunar flight. It is not orbital. It's just one swing round and back. But the highlights of the flight plan include during the first orbit, the crew will perform a burn with the ICPS, the interim cryogenic propulsion system. And that burn will elongate their Earth orbit to a high elliptical orbit that will stretch some 4,000 miles above the Earth. Now, that orbital period on that elliptical orbit is going to be 24 hours.
Oh, okay.
So during that 24 hours, they're going to be able to test out the manual systems of the Orion spacecraft. They'll separate from the ICPS. They'll turn around and they'll do a series of rendezvous and proximity operation maneuvers with the ICPS. Now, the purpose for that is to test out all the manual control systems on the Orion in case they should need them. Now, nominally, everything should happen automatically, but if the crew needs to interact, the crew needs to take over manually, which, of course, the crew of the Boeing flight had to.
Right.
They want to be sure that they understand the maneuvering characteristics and capabilities of this stack. So they'll do a series of these maneuvers. Now, Victor Glover, who's a pilot of the mission, he'll be the primary pilot on these maneuvers. But one reading that I took said that each crew member will get a chance to have their hands on the stick to do some of these maneuvers. Now, I haven't confirmed that, but that is one of the things that I've read earlier, and that would be similar to the rendezvous and prox ops they had planned for Apollo 1, when all 3 crew members would take a turn at the stick doing prox ops with the second stage of the S-1B.
Excellent. You've got a half a dozen slides racked up here, behind the scenes training to talk about the astronauts here. So
It's in Houston, and this is
you know their names and you can share them.
this is the training that goes on. This is the briefing that goes on before the crew enters the procedures trainer, and we have our mission commander Reed
Houston, correct?
Yeah, correct. We have, looking from right to left, our perspective, we've got Reed Wiseman, the commander. Next to him is Victor Glover, who's our pilot. And then from Canada, Jeremy Hansen, and then Christina Cook. I learned that there's a very interesting program as far as a backup crew is concerned on this flight. We have 2 backup astronauts. One, a specific backup for Jeremy, another Canadian, and then another backup astronaut who's going to be what I call a swing shift. Now, if something happens, let's say, to Victor Glover, the pilot, Victor out of that seat, Christina takes his seat, and then the backup takes Christina's seat. If something were to happen to Reed, we'd move Victor over to the left seat, then Christina would move to the pilot seat, and again, the backup would take Christina's original seat. So that's a pretty fluid, very interesting backup crew system they have planned for this mission.
All 4 crew members are familiar with the hardware and the software.
Yeah, this is
no matter
inside
what their
the
position.
procedures trainer, and you see everybody stacked in there pretty good. Of course, it does look pretty close quarters, and it is, but remember, up in space with zero gravity, you don't measure a living area by by floor area, you measure it by total volume. So they'll have a little more room to move around inside the spacecraft.
Everybody's been to space except the Canadian Hansen.
Yeah, but he's an experienced test pilot.
And the commander,
Reed Wiseman
he
has
was twice, I think 3 missions, a pilot once and twice a commander, maybe.
spent time on board the International Space Station, as did Christina and Vic. Here's a view inside the procedures trainer. And if you look closely, you'll notice that the hatch is oriented to the side of the astronauts instead of overhead as they had in Apollo. And you can see again there the crew members all strapped in.
Right. They're 90 degrees
Right,
turned
exactly.
from the Apollo. The heads would be at the hatch facing you.
So here you've got the crew strapped in. You have one of the engineer technicians inside
Still
the
looks like
trainer
Apollo
with
to
them.
me, though. You know.
Well,
I mean, that isn't, but it's still the main.
brings back a lot of memories.
Yeah, it sure does. Yeah.
Now here's a close-up of Christina during the training run. You see they're all suited up. If you look closely at the side of her faceplate, on either side of her faceplate, you'll see a round hole.
Yeah.
And this is a training helmet, so they can close and open those visors without worrying about fogging it up, because they're not pressurizing the suits inside this procedures trainer.
Okay.
So that allows them to open and close those visors, not worry about getting them all fogged up. But again, you've got a good idea here as to what the suits are like, very similar to the launch abort suits for the, the ascent and entry suits for the shuttle. Yeah, Marty, what do you got?
Yeah, I was just curious. What's the advantage of going into the capsule facing a new orientation versus the way Apollo?
I can only imagine that it was a weight savings thing. I don't know specifically, but the first thing that comes to mind, that might have been something that saved some weight on the spacecraft.
Marty's commenting how they're 90 degrees there from the hatch, but
And it might be easier access for, it might be good for access for 3 people in an overhead hatch, but for a 4-person crew, maybe it's easier going in through the side.
we're seeing the bottom 2 on the right, and then there's 2
Right,
to the
above them.
left, a little bit higher up, right? And,
Yeah, not to argue the point, but then you have to climb over two couches to get to the left seat.
Well, of course, you're going to load the commander first, and then the pilot, and then Jeremy, and then Christina. Load them in that order. Nobody has to crawl over each other.
No, not crawling over each other, but they're crawling over the couch.
Yeah.
So, I don't know. Just maybe you knew the answer for sure.
Carlton's Carlton Bailey, hi to you. He's making a comment, maybe it's orientation to take pictures or see something that's going on, but very interesting there. By the way, stay tuned for what this shot's all about, this great photo here coming up. Stay curious about that. Christina holds the American record for the most time continuously in space, a little over 11 months on her one expedition a couple years ago. I had her tagged as the first woman on the moon. And so I lost that bet, but I chose Jessica Myers as one. But really, I think the I can't remember her name. She is Jessica. There's a Jessica that's she's a big geologist. Anyway, did you have her in your running to be the first woman?
My vote for the first woman on the moon was and still is Nicole Mann.
Okay.
Yeah.
Nicole Mann, the Marine, I know who you mean. And above her in our women's gallery is the African American woman Jessica, can't remember her last name, but she's really a geologist.
Okay.
So, but yes, great choice there. And I do hear that name brought up a lot.
Here's Christina again inside the procedures trainer in an unsuited run. And of course, it's the opportunity to get familiar with the layout of the spacecraft, procedures, and so forth, finding out who's supposed to be where, when, and good training, good familiarization training for both spacecraft hardware and for the procedures. This is simulator here, and here we have Victor in the left seat and Christina in the right seat. Again, probably going over the procedures for that ICPS rendezvous and prox ops. A little later on, we'll have a picture of the screen control panel proper, and I'll go over a couple of some of the interesting points about command and control of the Orion spacecraft. Again, in the simulator with Reed in the left seat and Victor in the right. Again, going over anything from launch to ICPS to TLI burn or what have you. After they finish with the ICPS rendezvous maneuvers, they will take a 4-hour nap, and at the end of that nap, when they wake up, they'll do the TLI burn, translunar injection burn, using the engine on the service module, the single ohms engine on the service module. And once that burn is complete, they're going to have another 4 hours sleep. Although, if I just did a burn to go to the moon, I don't think I'd be able to sleep. But that's what they're going to do. And then afterwards, during the translunar coast, is going to be the opportunity to look at the performance of the systems on board, everything from deep space communications to the environmental control and life support system and other systems on board the spacecraft. So it's going to be, as it's been noted before, it's a combination of Apollo 7 and Apollo 8. Here's a view of the control panel inside the Orion spacecraft. Now you see the hard switches down on the bottom. Those are basically contingency switches, and I think there's some 30 hard switches inside the spacecraft. Everything else is done on touchscreen. Now we talked a lot about the efficacy of having touchscreens on board a spacecraft, because quite often you're dealing with G's, you're dealing with vibration, and how easy and accurate it's going to be for you to reach up to a screen and touch the proper. I mean, we have enough trouble with these touch screens here on Earth.
Yeah.
You touch the button wrong and you actually actuate the other one, and you got to start all over again. So how do you get past this? Well, on board the spacecraft, they have what's called the CCD, the cursor control device, and it's similar to a mouse, but instead of tracking over a pad, you've got a small button that manipulates the cursor on the screen. So you maneuver the cursor to where it has to be on the screen, and you actuate that switch, or you access that system, whatever you have to do. And the great thing about that is if you're heading uphill or coming back during a high G environment, you've got your hands down here. You got the CCD right down here at your right hand, and you can maneuver it without having to strain up and get up to the switches, the control panel, or anything like that. And I think Reed said that the CCD was Victor's favorite toy. He loves playing with it.
Huh. A weightless mouse.
Yeah.
Basically,
Yeah.
that's and my first look, like many of you on Stay Curious. of your
Beautiful
control
control panel.
There on
Exciting
there,
looking.
who's,
It's an exciting looking piece of hardware. It really, really
see
is.
See the rows up
Yeah.
here. I know
The ADI.
Steve Jokums is probably making screen grabs of this later, so he can try and copy it in
Well,
his beautiful
Steve,
Lake County spaceport.
Steve, just a heads up for you. Go to YouTube and look up Artemis 2 training. There's 2 videos up there so far, and one of those videos has a couple of these close-ups that you can make a good clean screen grab from.
There you go.
And of course, there's classroom training. No matter what you're doing, there's always classroom training. And here we got Christina on to the right and Jeremy to the left, going over some portion of the flight plan or systems on board the spacecraft. It looks like a very loose training session. Everybody got a smile on their face, so something humorous might be discussed there. But there is no lack, and I would remind the young people, there is no lack of classroom work in the astronaut business. And the classroom work is very intense. It can be very interesting, as opposed to the administrative meetings, which are pretty dull. But these briefings, these classroom briefings that you get are, and of course, it's very important that you get it right. So that tends to focus your attention.
Excellent. Marty's got a question on that UCX family microphone.
No, I have a comment. According to Wikipedia, getting back to the question I asked you, Nick, about the seat orientation.
Yeah.
The main advantage of orienting the crew seats 9 degrees differently in the Orion spacecraft compared to Apollo capsule is to increase safety by providing optimal protection from radiation belts. This design also improves comfort for the crew during different flight phases.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
I don't know if I understand that.
Radiation, I didn't expect to hear.
To the Van Allen belt.
Because radiation is all surrounding, all encompassing. But I'll go with the engineers. This is Wikipedia. So
Wikipedia.
Okay.
Or they could be strapped in like that for that high orbit. or will they be allowed to free float? Maybe they're inside the radiation belt more than
That's a
they
good
thought.
question as to what the seating configuration is
Yeah.
going to be. It's one of the things I was thinking of in the realm of possibilities was they may want to keep the crew strapped in until after the TLI burn. I don't know. I have no idea, but that would be interesting to find out.
Of course, they'd strap in to sleep. But anyway, we're great, Marty, there, and something that is serious business up
Yeah.
there in space is Christina learning about the
I
vacuum cleaner they're going to use.
I
It
was
looks like a wet vac
again. This is
in my garage.
this can be seen on the training videos. There's not a lot of explanation given to the operation, although I don't think that much is needed. But Christina's being briefed here on the operation of the toilet, and more likely also being briefed on how to make repairs if that's necessary, because that's going to be a
So there
critical
is a
piece of it.
toilet in a small confined space like the Orion spacecraft instead of using the Apollo poop bags or whatever they've been using. there.
We're not going back to the bags again. No.
Okay, not going back to the bags. Wow, that was a
Co-ed cruise.
You just have to go to Walt Cunningham's 14-page memo on how to use those bags for a good laugh.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah.
Is there a PDF in the
Well,
cloud on that somewhere?
well, I haven't been able to track it down, but I've seen portions of the printed version, and all I can say is he must have had a lot of fun putting that thing together, because it's
We'll check
it's all done very seriously and with a straight face, but you can't help but break the laughter on some of the bullet points.
We'll get to Walt Cunningham here in just a minute.
This is the crew in the food lab, and the usual ritual of the shuttle crews, getting a chance to evaluate all the food, making their selections, and turning them into the dietitians. The one thing I just kind of tickles my imagination here is you see Victor Glover using a small computer panel, and they use those now. In the old days, he had a list of the food items and space next to it to rate it from 1 to 10. Now I guess you're doing that on little computers. But again, this is the same thing it's same as shuttle astronauts would do, of learning about the food and how to prepare it, and understanding the taste of it and so forth. So
I see there's
some
a
things
sign on
don't
the
change.
back there, even Space Food Systems Laboratory.
Yeah, Vicki Colaris, who ran the food lab for many, many years, wrote a book recently. I haven't gotten around to getting it yet, but I've got to get it because there got to be some fascinating stories.
The
in that
lady's
book.
name again?
Vicki Colaris, Koleris.
Caloris.
Vicki
Like
Colaris.
calories almost.
Vicki
That's how I
Colaris.
relate to that. Wrote a food book. Do you remember the name of it?
No.
All right. And out training?
Oh yeah, in Iceland, and here's the crew doing a geology work in Iceland. I had a chance to talk to Al Warden at length of the geological training that he and the Apollo 15 crew did. And my question for Al specifically was, how did this help you? Because you're going to be high up in orbit. And what you're doing in these training sessions on the ground is you're establishing what's called ground truth. You understand what the terrain looks like, say, from a lava flow, or where a certain volcanic activity might occur. And you learn that on the ground, so as when you see it from lunar orbit, you can tell exactly what you're looking at and what you should look for next, where the field of cinder cones might be or what have you. So these training sessions in Iceland give them an opportunity to do that. Now, it's not you get off the helicopter, you chop a few blocks off and then leave. This is a multi-day event. And you have to travel a lot by foot. So one astronaut has to do the planning and the navigating, where they're going to go from spot to spot, set up their camp, get everything squared away, get everybody taken care of. So it's true expeditionary experience during these geology trips. And again, this is available on YouTube on one of the training videos. And in part of the video, the rain starts, and this is sleet. And it's almost going sideways, and you can hear the wind, and you can just feel the cold of this place. And they're chopping away at a big old boulder with their hammer and spike, and nobody's having a lot of fun, but it's all part of it. So it's very important, these expeditionary training sessions, because it gives everyone a chance to field each position, say navigator, if you will, or day planner, or setting up the camp, or what have you. and it is kind of it is an opportunity for each crew member to understand their own limitations and the limitations and the abilities or talents of their fellow crew members. So it's like the Knowles training that they did for Space Shuttle. It's a chance for everyone to learn from leadership, from followership, and also to understand what's involved in a true team effort like that. Do you have a question, Marty?
Yeah, RG Jubilee is asking, do they get to choose which food they take with them?
I expect so. Just like you did on the shuttle, you rate the food. Now, I think the dietitians have the final word. They'll look at your selections and they'll balance you up as far as calories and so forth are concerned. But yeah, you're able to choose your food. And one of the shuttle astronauts told me that if they'd look at the scale and 10 was the best and 1 was the worst, and they'd say, well, let's give them anything but a 1, and they'll eat it. So.
All right, we've looked at Artemis. I'd learned a lot there. Thank you, Nick, for
Sure.
doing that. We're only about a third of the way through the show, so you might need a snack or another sip of coffee like us here. But we're going to talk about this man, Wally Schirra, and from Hackensack, New Jersey. And there's, of course, that is one of the most classic of all the Mercury astronaut photographs. That one and Gordon Cooper with the fog around him and in the silver boots. So I've got a case of these, but they're not autographed.
Some folks thought that the fog shot was a little over the top. But
Did they?
here
Okay.
you've got the great picture of Wally, graduate of the Naval Academy, test pilot, fighter pilot, 2 MiGs in Korea.
Okay.
So a highly accomplished, highly skilled pilot with probably one of the most ebullient senses of humor of the original 7, but at the same time a hard-nosed engineer and developmental flight test pilot who was able to get
the max.
who was able to get the job done. And as we'll see in these 2 flights, he was the right man for the right job at the right time. Here's an overview of Apollo 7. Wally in the center with Walt Cunningham to our right, and to our left is Don Isley.
Walt Cunningham is my vote for the best flat top haircut.
Well, it was funny. The first time Walt did astronaut encounter with us, it was very early in the program, and we're doing these programs outside, and I was not involved, and I was still working over the SSPF. And one of the girls came to me, and she said, "Who's the astronaut we got on duty today?" I said, "Let me look him up." She says, "Yeah, he's got this whole Clint Eastwood thing going on," and it was Walt. So I told Walt about that.
You like that?
Didn't seem to register, but I think he enjoyed it.
Anyway, October 1968 for this mission, and October 1965 for Wally. And let's turn Mr. Thomas loose here on my heroes. I certainly had this picture on my bedroom wall as a kid, and individuals like you probably did.
Classic view of the original 7 astronauts, and this view famously underscores their talents as test pilots. They were there because they were test pilots. That was a requirement back in the Mercury days. You had to have, I think, 1,000 hours of time in high-performance jet aircraft. And, of course, these gentlemen had that and then some. A mixture of Air Force, Navy, and 1 Marine. And
what aircraft is that?
I think that's the F-104. I think that's the 104.
Okay.
But Scott Carpenter used to tease John Glenn, saying that we had to have a Marine there just to be politically correct. But yeah, remarkable group of men. And of course, during that time, Life magazine was doing profiles on them. And of course, as a young boy, this was my first exposure to the original 7 astronauts and to the idea of a manned space program. All those Life magazine issues that came out in that time, profiling all the astronauts and their families, and it was a very, very unique time. Wally's mission, of course, Sigma 7, with the Greek symbol for Sigma there, meaning the sum of knowledge. And Wally wanted to highlight this as being a purely engineering test flight, because they had, even though Friendship 7 and Aurora 7 were considered successful, both those vehicles came back fuel-starved. John came back on low tanks, and Scott's tanks emptied out during reentry. So the problem was people were saying, well, if we can't save fuel on 3 orbits around the Earth, how are we going to get to the moon? So it was decided by mission operations that we needed a flight to demonstrate just that, the ability to conserve our fuel on this spacecraft, and also to double our time in orbit. So to underscore both of those accomplishments, they chose, as I said, the right man for the job, Wally Schirra, who, while he was very fun-loving, he was a hard-nosed engineer and developmental flight test pilot, and he was going to be the one who would prove the spacecraft out.
Just wanted to
ahead.
mention, no official
No.
Mercury patches, but
Yeah.
this is the one that is sold to gift shops,
Yeah.
stuff like that.
Yeah.
If
We
you
didn't
had a
start. We didn't start cutting patches until Gemini 5. Yeah, everything else you see on the shore, the shelves are commemorative, if you will. But we didn't cut a genuine flight patch until Gemini 5 in 1965 with Cooper and Conrad. Wally in the silver pressure suit that we're all familiar with.
Yeah.
That silver pressure suit was just so almost mythical when you look back at the images from the Mercury program. And seeing that as a young boy, you realize that there wasn't anything else this guy was going to be doing but going to space. It was really exciting.
Yeah.
The next image, you've got Wally with the Hasselblad camera, and it was Wally's idea to carry the Hasselblad on this flight. And subsequently, Hasselblads were part of the manned space program ever after through the Apollo program.
And thank you for the USIAC brothers to loaning us their Hasselblad remote camera system that's on display here at our museum.
Yeah. Wally and Chris Kraft in the Mercury Control Center going over the flight plan for Sigma 7. Chris was a big proponent of this flight because he, like many other engineers, felt that we had to prove that we had the ability to conserve our fuel on a mission like this. And Wally, as I said, fun-loving on one side, but hard-nosed on the other. Not one single scrap of scientific data was going to be taken on this flight. I mean, there were going to be no experiments, no point in the spacecraft to get a view of the haze layer or the atmosphere or anything like that. It was, if anyone even whispered science near Wally, he would just immediately veto it. So he pared this flight down to nothing but testing the spacecraft systems and our ability to conserve fuel on a 6-orbit flight.
Yep. Which 90 minutes in orbit. Okay, you do the math. He's going to be up there about 9 hours.
Yeah, and for people who are interested, if you go to YouTube, Lunar Module 5, who is a contributor to YouTube, has his own page. He has just posted the full mission audio on Sigma 7, so you can get the full 6-orbit flight on YouTube.
Is that right?
And it's all spacecraft attitude, spacecraft systems, fuel levels, O2 levels, and electrical readings. No views of the Pacific Ocean. And in fact, at one point, back during Scott Carpenter's flight, Scott made a show of contacting the tracking station in Guaymas, Mexico, and speaking Spanish to them, speaking a Spanish greeting to them. And that went over real big in the newspapers with the Spanish and with the Mexicans and so forth. So Wally is flying over Mexico at one point, and somebody said, "Do you have anything you want to say to the folks in Mexico, Wally?" And Wally just said, "Buenos dias, y'all." And oh God, everybody went nuts. It was on the newspapers, everybody's talking about it. But in point of fact, Wally was kind of bugged at that point that somebody would ask him to say something frivolous like that. He's busy flying the spacecraft. It's like, we don't have time for this, Mickey Mouse. All right, buenos dias, y'all. Get out of my way. Let's get back to work. So, pretty interesting. During the suit up here with that silver Mercury pressure suit, and getting ready to go out to the launch pad several hours before a launch. Wally's specialty during the training phase for the original 7 astronauts, his specialty was the pressure suit. So he was intimately familiar with it and with its pros and cons, and was able to solve one of the problems of that suit while he was up on orbit. We'll talk about that in a little while.
I'll bet you know the name of that suit tech.
I can't see. I don't know if that's That's not Joe Schmidt. It might be. It might be
That
Al.
doesn't look like Joe.
No. It might be Al Rochefort, who was Joe's assistant.
Joe's on the other side, probably.
I'm sure Joe's in the room, but I would guess that'd probably be.
Always liked the lounge chair. Good choice
Very-
of a nice leather
Yeah, very
lazy boy.
very comfortable. But it, again, you're in the suit, and This is. This is probably before they put on the gloves and helmet to do the pressure check of the suit. But yeah, this is in the suit up phase of the mission. Coming out of Hangar S, coming out of the front of Hangar S. Now, it was interesting because for whatever reason, Al Shepard and Gus Grissom elected to come out of a door on the south side of Hangar S. But starting with John Glenn, all the guys came out through the front hangar doors on the east side of the building, and Wally's doing that right here, carrying the portable ventilator with him. And coming out of what the guys call the cattle car at pad 14, Gordon Cooper, the backup pilot, is there in the lead, and Wally just coming out of the doorway and getting ready to go up the elevator at pad 14 to get on
Just
board the
imagine the
Sigma
heart
7
starts
vehicle.
pounding there a little bit extra, maybe
No,
there.
no. I'm the only experience that I have to draw on comparatively to this was my time as a general aviation pilot, and the first time I did a cross country solo flight. Now, the night before, I was putting together my flight plan and frequencies, waypoints, and so forth. And when I finished and I was having dinner, I said to myself, I'm probably not going to get much sleep tonight. Well, I slept like a baby. The next morning, I'm driving to the airfield and I'm thinking frequencies, I'm thinking waypoints, I'm thinking procedures, I'm thinking timing, and so forth. Very relaxed, not a care in the world. And that's not credit to me. That's credit to my training. That's credit to my instructor, who taught me how to view these things in a detached way and just keep my head in the game in the right way and not to get in my own head too much. So I imagine the same thing with all these astronauts. Your heart isn't going pity pat when you're getting out of that trailer. You're just thinking about the job that you've got to do, and the training that you've undergone for the past period of time has made you confident in your training and in your training instructors. So no, I don't think any emotional pity pat or anything going on, particularly with a person like Wally.
Well, there's quite a few private pilots out there probably relate to that there.
Sure.
So, but there's the Atlas
There's a
2
great
rocket.
Atlas rocket, beautiful liftoff from launch pad 19. Now 19 is being leased by a private concern, and I believe they've torn down the remaining pad structure out there. They've left the blockhouse, but they are reconfiguring pad 14 for their use.
14.
Pad 14.
Okay.
Yeah. Did I say 19? I always mix
You
that up
did,
with
and I'm
Gemini.
thinking, but
Pad 14. And this,
I was going to correct you. I was just thinking I got them mixed up.
it's
I
going to
love
be.
the gantry. What a simple little gantry.
Yeah, now there was the stationary gantry there, and there was a larger gantry that moved away from the launch pad area well before a launch. But you can see the access arm of the gantry is cocked up. The actual white room was in that mobile tower that has since moved away in this picture.
Let me show you something on this picture that we did a little show on that I figured out one day. That right there is a stoplight. A red and right, Marty? We did a little program on that stoplight there. That is a red and green as the colors on that stoplight.
I think that was to let people know whether there were
Fueling or something.
hazardous operations going on at the launch pad.
Yeah.
And hazardous operations would include loading the propellants for the maneuvering jets on board the capsule itself, which were, we weren't using hypergols at the time, we were using peroxide. Peroxide was for the maneuvering rockets on board the capsule itself.
So it's all this little minutiae you learn when you keep seeing the same pictures over and over, and people who work there talk about. Wally did take a picture of the
Beautiful view of the Earth's horizon, and you can see the outline of that trapezoidal window that the guys fought to have. Very important, as it turned out, because you needed that kind of a view if you had to manually reconfigure the attitude of the capsule, and you had to be able to see the horizon and align the capsule in a proper way for either retrofire or for reentry. So a good positive use of that trapezoidal window. And coming down into the ocean, I believe. Let's see. No,
What a
we had
photo.
yeah,
What a
yeah,
photo.
yeah. There was a first regarding this, and it wasn't the first photo of a splashdown because let's see, no, we've had, this might have been the first Mercury splashdown where we had a picture of the capsule under parachute. I'd have to go back and check, but I just like I say, I have a feeling there's a
This might
first
jog you.
associated with this
It was
picture.
4:28 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. That would be in the middle of, well, Pacific, probably around noon or in the morning. The Kearsarge missed distance from landing zone was 4 nautical miles.
Yeah, very close, good close
Yeah.
landing.
Pinpoint, and that was important to Wally too.
Sure.
In this engineering thing that he
And
wanted to.
and the funny thing about this too was, the goal that they had here was saving fuel and being in drifting flight and so forth. But mission operations, who planned out the flight, decided they wanted a full test of the automatic retrofire and reentry system. So Wally was told that retrofire and reentry would all be handled by the ASCS, the Automatic Stabilization Control System. The problem with ASCS was it was a real fuel guzzler. And Wally realized that his fuel margin was really going to be dipped into by using this ASCS system. Now, while he came home after reentry, he had, I think, 65 and 75% in the auto and manual tanks. He would have had a lot more if he'd been able to manually control that retrofire and reentry. But they wanted to test that auto system, and that's what they got.
And you see the airbag, if you will.
The landing bag,
the
yeah,
landing
exactly.
bag there, after
Cushion the
heat
capsule.
shield.
Cushion the
with,
capsule when it hit the water. We hit
yeah.
the capsule hit the water at about somewhere around 7 to 10 miles per hour, I think was the impact speed. So that landing bag helped not only to absorb that impact, but with perforations in that landing bag, it would quickly fill up with water, and that would help to stabilize the capsule and keep it upright while it was in the water.
That amazing photo for its time there. That'd be a piece of cake to anybody today, but for its time, that's quite a photo. And then they took the spacecraft to
the Kearsarge, right? Yep. And Wally blew the hatch there and exited the spacecraft. One of the
Is that the only way to get rid of the hatch, was to detonate it?
it was, yeah, you would detonate it either from the inside or the outside. Now on the outside there was a lanyard. You opened up a panel near the hatch and you took out a lanyard that gave you, I think, about 9 or 10 feet of distance away from the capsule, and you'd yank that thing, it would blow the hatch. That would be, of course, if the astronaut was incapacitated and someone on the outside had to get him out. Wally detonated the hatch from the inside because he wanted to prove a point about Gus Grissom's Liberty Bell 7. If you use that actuator, if you use that plunger inside the spacecraft, it would kick back on you, and you get a bruise on your knuckles, which Wally did, and he showed it to Gus afterward, showed him the bruise, basically certifying the fact that Gus in no way had touched that plunger on Liberty Bell 7.
Wow, sticking up for his buddy there. That sounds cool.
And
you got a ticker tape parade.
A parade afterwards, and Wally in the automobile. Boy, you just don't see this kind of thing anymore. However, I think it would be, and I'm looking at New York City. I think it would be nice if we threw a ticker tape parade for the Artemis II crew when they came back home. So let's bring back that tradition and instill a little more pride and joy back in our manned space program.
And all for that hip hip parade. They had one for the 50. There was something in Cocoa Beach, about 6 years ago or 7 years ago.
But in the old days, you had a ticker tape parade in New York.
Oh,
you had one in Chicago and major cities.
Absolutely. So there was one little, as we're going to leave the Mercury program here and go to Apollo. Of course, Wally was a Gemini pilot. What was his mission there?
Gemini 6.
6. That's
rendezvous.
Yeah, right. The
Gemini
rendezvous
7.
was 7, of course. Him and Tom Stafford. But there was something that was a code that was uttered on this mission, and it has to do with a standing joke. Are you a turtle?
Right. Now, this goes back to pilots. We think as far as World War II, and it's a membership in a group known as the Turtles. I think they had a more official name for it. But the thrust of this was if you were in a bar with a bunch of other pilots and somebody said, "Are you a turtle?" you had to answer in a voice loud enough for everyone to hear. You had to say, "You bet your sweet ass I am." You couldn't just whisper to the guy. Everybody in the bar had to hear it, because if they didn't, you had to buy the bar around. I mean, the whole bar, not just the bar, the whole house around of drinks. So this was usually something that one pilot would stick another one with. And Deke Slayton took the opportunity to stick Wally with this during launch on Sigma 7. I think probably about a minute or so into the flight, Deke asked him, he said, "Are you a turtle?" And Wally said, "Going to Vox recorder." And on the Vox recorder, Wally said, "You bet your sweet ass I am." So when Walt Williams and the other guys met Wally on the Kearsarge, they didn't want to know about the particles or the lightning bugs or the fuel or anything. They wanted to hear the voice recorder to hear him make that answer, which he played for them.
That's cool.
Marty.
Yeah, Mark Dell is saying it's the fraternal order of turtles.
Fraternal Order of Turtles. Now, there is also a certain ceremony that goes with this. If you were going to be initiated in the Turtles, you had to prove that you were a person of high character and clean mind. So to do that, you had to answer 3 questions.
I've got these questions
And
right.
they are,
You know what they are?
yes, they are. Yes, I do. Now, the first question, well, one of the questions is, what is long and hard and full of semen? A submarine. Second question is, what is a 4-letter word for intercourse that ends in K? Talk. And then finally, what does a man do standing up? What does a woman do sitting down? What does a dog do on 3 legs? Shake hands. So if you answered those questions correctly, you could prove yourself to be of high moral character, and you were a member of the Turtles.
Are you a turtle? You bet your sweet ass I am. And Rosalie put some turtle emojis on there for us to enjoy on the YouTube. Now you know. Well, glad you're enjoying this conversation with Nick Thomas. We're going to talk another little half hour, probably more here or so, about Apollo 7. Of course, we had the tragic fire of Apollo 1, and it's just incredible. We still made it to the moon in 1969 with that year and a half downtime. But my gosh, it was this mission couldn't have solidified the footprints going to the moon that we were going to do it. So
yeah, very crucial mission, as you say, to prove out the Apollo hardware after that terrible fire on Pad 34 in 1967. Here is the mission patch for Apollo 7 with the beautiful ellipse, the spacecraft going around the Earth, and the names and the mission number in Roman numerals, and very inspiring patch. I can remember seeing it for the first time as a young boy, and there was a lot of
today, of course.
I always wear this on a show about Wally, but it very inspiring. It was just another touch of the I don't know, the spirit that they brought to this mission as far as the public was concerned, as far as restoring the public's confidence in the manned space program.
The service propulsion engine is a big art piece there, because that was a big part of this.
Big part of the testing they had to do.
Testing of that, and a 10-day mission.
Crew at the again at the hatch of the Apollo capsule with from left to right, Don Isley, Wally Schirra, and Walt Cunningham.
Yeah, I think people interested the correct pronunciation which you give of Isley's name.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yes, sometimes that's and Hazel C. Keck Banks was watching today. She told me it was Isley, like the Isley brothers kind of thing in there. There's Walt there.
Again, those of you who will remember the picture of the Apollo 1 and the praying hands picture where the crew was gathered around a model of the command module and were deep in prayer, and they gave that picture as a prank to Joe Shea, the program manager, and it unfortunately turned out to be very prophetic. Wally and his crew decided to do kind of a matching picture there at the hatch of the Apollo, but a lot of concern about this flight because it was a test of this spacecraft after a terrible fire. There was a lot riding on the crew's shoulders as far as the future of the program was concerned, and a lot of testing that had to be done during this flight. So not a small step taken in the manned space program. Of course, as I said, Life magazine carried these coverage of these missions very profusely, and Wally's first cover on Life magazine after he'd been named commander of Apollo 7.
The word skipper makes me smile.
Mm-hmm.
When that was my dad's nickname was Skip. But,
Oh, okay.
but you don't hear a commander ain't called skipper in the 21st century too much. I don't think. But he had an awesome comb over part there for sure. his hairstyle. Their flight crew training building
Flight
there.
crew training building between Sims and Wally, as usual, looking very relaxed. Very interesting because Wally on the outside, of course, was still very gregarious and relaxed and fun-loving, but on the inside, away from the public eye, he was, as I say, very hard-nosed, to the point where he drove some of the guys at the North American plant to distraction because he was watching everything very closely and letting anyone know if he was displeased with any particular part of the vehicle. Some of the folks weren't up to that, but at the same time, several years ago, I spoke to one of the North American engineers who was there during the run-up to Apollo 7. He was at the plant in Downey where they were working on the spacecraft 101. And he told me, he said, Wally gets a bad rap for being a prima donna. He said, but in point of fact, he says, there at Downey, everybody after the fire, everybody was sitting around feeling sorry for themselves. And Wally came in with a few well-aimed kicks in the asses to straighten people out, get their head in the game, and remind them what the importance of their job. So I give Wally a lot of credit for that, because sometimes, I'm sorry, it's just like George Patton. Sometimes you got to go through the troops' barracks and straighten everybody out, let them know there's a new sheriff in town and it's time to get serious and get your head in the game. So I give Wally a lot of credit for that.
Well, the culture needed some change
Sure.
because it was a shoddy workmanship.
Yeah, it really was.
Looked at it.
Yeah.
It was amazing what I've learned and you learned, and from people that are involved in it. Go watch a Gary Allgaier show about Apollo and hear about how the whole electrical side was put on the wrong side. Actually,
Well,
Marty, go ahead there.
We got a question from Robert Law. On Apollo 7 flight, did they do anything to remember Apollo 1 crew?
No, they didn't do anything. I think originally Wally wanted to name the vehicle the Phoenix as a remembrance of the fire, but NASA vetoed that. I don't think at that time NASA was at all ready to revisit the fire. They didn't want to talk about it. Now you compare that with Challenger and Columbia, where on the following flights the crews did do a memorial for each crew while they were in orbit, which I think was very appropriate. But back in those days, back in 1968, I don't think NASA was really ready to do that. They wanted to put the fire in the rear view window as quickly as they could, and so no, there was no memorial, there was no mention of the Apollo 1 crew during the Apollo 7 mission.
We've got several comments there from Dean Babcock and Mark Thel and others that you're going to talk about. This was a tense mission between Houston and the spacecraft for various reasons, and I think you'll get to that. So sit tight. If not, we'll revisit your questions there. It doesn't. In a way, it detracts from what this mission was all about.
I agree.
Another engineering mission that had to be done right, or we weren't going to the moon.
Yeah.
And the guys caught a cold.
Yeah.
But you'll talk about that stuff.
There's been a lot of emphasis put on those hard feelings between the ground and the crew to a point of distraction, I think, where people talk about that, but they don't stop to talk about the incredible engineering accomplishment of this flight. Here we are over in the ONC building near crew quarters, and there's Deke Slayton, who is our director of flight crew operations, talking to Wally, Walt, and Don, and again, kind of a loose atmosphere there. Leading up to what went on the spacecraft, before the mission, Wally announced that he was retiring, and he'd been in this business for so long, and he said, I have been consumed by this business, and I think that's very accurate, because in that business, you're regularly doing 16-hour days, 6 days a week, and a lot of family time and a lot of life gets lost in a situation like that. So I think Wally, rightfully so, had made that comment. On the other hand, the fact that he announced his retirement ahead of time was sort of like, well, it kind of gave him free license to do whatever he wanted to when he got up on board got up on orbit.
Yeah. I said we'll get to some questions about the what y'all want to talk about, because I know you'll address them there about the tension between them at Houston and them at times. But there's an astronaut who turned down walking on the moon. So did Jim McDivitt. So did Frank Borman, in my opinion.
Yeah.
And you just hit the nail on the head. 16-hour days for no family time. Yeah. And when you were with your family, you had to be on. You know what I mean? You couldn't be down. So I really admire those three gentlemen that could have easily been commanders of a moon.
Some years ago, they did an interview with people who were in mission control during Apollo 11. Bob Carlton was on the clock measuring the amount of fuel they had left in the LEM tanks as they were coming down. A very important job. So they're talking, we're looking at the past and looking at this history, and they asked each person the same question. They got around to asking Bob. They said, well, would you go back and do it all over again? And, usually the answer is, yeah, best time of my life, love to go back. Bob said no. He says, I wouldn't go back and do it again. He says, I lost too much time with my family. I didn't see my kids grow up. So, no, I wouldn't do it again. And I thought that spoke very eloquently as to the sacrifices that were being made by these men and women in the support positions that no one ever gave any thought to. Public never talked about it. Life magazine never talked to these people. But they were making a sacrifice just as great, in some cases maybe greater than some of the flight crews.
Well, let's go on here. So, do you have a comment about that picture? Oh, yeah, we talked about Deke there, chief of the astronaut office. Looks like he's staying buff there.
Well, just to be clear, Deke was director of flight crew operations.
Okay.
Chief of the office at this time was Alan Shepard.
Gotcha. Thank you there.
Again, another light moment. Another light moment on the ground. That's where all these light moments took place. The only time they were light up on orbit was when the TV camera was run.
Right.
But again, just kind of this was an important morale point for the general public, because it was so important that the public realized that we were back on track. And there's a certain way that Americans have of approaching adversity. It's not only with determination, but it's also with good humor. And that's a distinctly American trait, I will say that. And so you've got the gag pictures, you've got the stories of the Corvette races, and you've got the overall view of the crew being well-trained, but at the same time loose and relaxed. And that was very important for the American public to see, and they saw very much so during those TV transmissions from up on orbit.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and again, outside the spacecraft, I think that's Walt sitting down there on the ground after one of the training sessions. We normally had the wet dress test and then the dry dress test, and this would have been sometime during the dry test of the vehicle. Suit up room, those big chairs once again. Now that large pressure suit for Apollo, which kind of surprised those of us who looked at the suits from Mercury and Gemini, and this was a lot larger. I can tell you from having lifted Alan Shepard's suit, it's a lot heavier. It's something on the order of a good 70 pounds or so. So that's a lot of weight to be packing on your back, especially on a hot Florida day. But again, the suiting process at the operations checkout building over at KSC. And going out to the van, another milestone that everyone looked forward to, a chance to for the workers who were gathered around that area to wave to the crew and wish them good luck and to express their confidence. And and a chance for the crew to see the confidence of our support team. So, a brief but critical time out there. As the launch of the S-1B from Pad 34, of course, this is a two-stage rocket with the 8-engine first stage, and the second stage was a single-engine S-4B. Rocket that was going to have a lot to do on these lunar flights, in that it was going to have to be started, shut down, and then restarted. And that was the first time we'd done that on a rocket in space. So it was a very critical milestone, of course, for this mission as well.
That's what our screenshot is, a beautiful shot.
Launched from Pad 34.
Yeah.
And if you look off to the left, you can see the one of the launch towers, and also the mobile service structure that was going to be used for the Saturn V over at Complex 59.
Now it's the site of the remains of where the Apollo 1 fire was. Nick Thomas did an excellent Master of Ceremonies last January out there. I've been privileged to see it a couple times out there. It's quite moving. One of the amazing memorials that we're involved with here on the Space Coast. But it's not is there a tour that can be paid to go out there?
No, I don't think we're doing
Anymore?
public tours out there anymore. The Cape tour that we used to do, it was discontinued, and it was because we have so many visitors from around the world, and if they were going to come on to the Cape Canaveral Space Force station, they were going to have to bring along their passports and things of that nature, because there are strict rules about people from other nationalities going out there to the Cape. So that became just such a rigmarole that the tour was discontinued.
I've been privileged to go as a guest to the Astronaut Memorial Foundation or something like that, but it's quite a great ceremony out there.
Yeah. Well, we it means a lot to us.
Yeah.
We have people from the program, and from that day, for instance, John Tribe joins us, Lowell Grissom, Gus's brother, and Gus's sons, Scott and Mark, come out.
Yeah.
And Laura Shepard came out, I think it was last year, as a matter of fact.
She attends there. Never know who's going to come up there. But and Lowell Grissom, just what an excellent gentleman he is. I met him several times here at the museum and there. Well, let's get them in orbit. One beautiful shot of that's Florida. Wow, what a nice shot coming on the west side of Florida.
Yeah, the pictures that came back from this mission again were just so eye-opening. Our cameras and so forth had improved over time.
Oh,
They were
right,
still
yeah,
taking,
the technology.
however, they were still taking the Hasselblad camera up there. And if memory serves, I think Walt Cunningham took this picture.
Oh, that's some hellacious
Gorgeous
sun flare and so forth all
just
over the place. And
the perfect
and,
balance of color and
but,
light, and just really
still,
gorgeous image.
yeah.
And one of the television transmissions, as I said, which were very important for the American public to understand that we're not only back, but we're back with a sense of style, a little bit of flair, a little bit of the silk scarf flying in the wind. And again, a lot of good humor expressed in these TV transmissions. And in fact, the crew won a special Emmy that year for their television transmissions from Apollo 7.
Keep those cards and letters coming, folks.
Right. And one of the other signs said, from that lovely Apollo room high above everything. So there's a lot of good humor expressed in these TV
they did win
transmissions.
a television Emmy for this.
Yeah.
And
Wally up on orbit. Beautiful picture, I think, of Wally. Again, the lighting, the shadows, and so forth. I think you get the impression here of the the space veteran who's on his last flight. There's a lot of, I think, a lot of poetry in this picture, if you will. I think it's a very good picture of Wally, kind of showing where he was in his life, and again, that the sense of the country is back, our technology is working, and we're ready to continue with this.
yeah, it's one of the classic images of the space age. You see that one pop up a lot, and then the recovery.
Yeah, going to the Essex was the recovery ship, and here's Wally coming out of the spacecraft. And Wally being Wally, usually in the Navy, the captain's the last one to come out, but no, Wally was the first one to step out of the hatch on this one. But they were recovered on the aircraft carrier, the Essex, which, by the way, was going to be the recovery carrier for Apollo 1 if that mission had flown. But you understand these guys have come back from nearly 11 days in Earth orbit. And by the time they got into the 10th day before coming home, the bloom was really off the rose. And as Walt Cunningham told the story, before that you were looking through the window and looking at the Earth and marveling at the beauty. Well, here they were on the 10th day, and Walt's looking out the window. And Wally says, "What are you looking at, Walt?" And Walt says, "It's just those stupid Himalayas again." Only he didn't say stupid. I cleaned that up. But it was by that time, it was like, cut the rope and let's go home.
Yeah. Do you know where the capsule is? Because I do. I've actually touched the hatch where they're both touching.
Where was that at?
The Frontiers of Flight at Love Field in Dallas, Texas.
Okay, very good.
Fabulous museum. Headquarters for the American Airlines, or one of the airlines there. They also have a hell of a display for the supersonic Concorde.
Concorde, yeah.
There, yep. But it's there, and I can't believe it. The docents encourage you to touch it. There was just a meager rope around it, but as you go in a ladder where the frogman is to look inside of it, that is covered with plastic, the hatch is open, and I said, "Can I touch that?" "Oh yeah." And so but it's pretty cool display there.
For many years,
Frontier Flight there at Love Field in Dallas.
For many years, we had the Apollo-Soyuz test project capsule, the Apollo capsule, over at the VC. And I got a call from the exhibits people one day, and they said, "Hey, we're taking off the plexiglass cover of the command module. Want to come over?" I said, "Oh yeah, sure." So naturally, that was a chance to get in that spacecraft and to sit in the left seat and just kind of feel the history, kind of settle in with the history of that flight. So
of ASTP.
I wouldn't admit that if Tom Stafford were still alive. The general wouldn't like that, but yeah, I can admit that publicly. Yeah, I got into the ASTPCM.
What did it tight fit? What was the?
It was comfortable. It was displayed at an angle, so my head was down. The blood was rushing to my head.
Oh.
But it was a comfortable fit, and as John Young would have said, it was just right for the job he had to do, which was ascent, entry, and rendezvous. And so the capsule, the display, the control panel was well laid out, and I recognized a number of the switches, the abort handle over on the left, which doubles as your translational controller. And if you were aborting using the LAS, the launch abort system, you would twist that handle to the left, and that would trigger the abort. So that's how you did a manual abort on Apollo.
That's cool. That's cool. Where is the ASTP command module now?
I don't know where that is, but I'm sure it's on the
somebody
internet.
knows. Steve Jocum's going to tell us before we leave here. So there they are on the
Here's
deck.
the crew on the Essex and on the number 1 elevator. And again, this was it was kind of a unique time, because here we had the good feelings of a good mission, of a flight well flown, a 101% success. But on the other hand, there was the cloud in-house of the difficulties between the spacecraft and mission control. Now, a lot of these difficulties came from the fact that a lot of last-minute changes were being read up to the crew, and Wally didn't like that. An extra firing of the surface propulsion system was no small thing. You didn't just turn a knob and push a button. You had to go through an intricate checklist of all the systems, the fuel tanks, the temperatures.
So I want him to do that. That was not in the script.
It was not in the original flight plan, and that disturbed him, to say the least. And a number of other things that caused for some tense exchanges between spacecraft and ground. Now, as a result of this, and I can only think that it's a result of this, because after every Apollo flight, the crew was awarded either the Exceptional Service Medal or the Distinguished Service Medal. I can't remember which one. But the Apollo 7 crew did not get their ESM until after Wally had died. And frankly, I think that's chicken shit for them to have done that. And by that time, Walt Cunningham was the only living member of the crew. So he went and he accepted that on behalf of the crew. But the fact they waited until after Wally had died to do that, I think that
Really?
that didn't speak very well of whoever's making that decision.
The this picture's taken October 22nd, 1968. They landed about 7 in the morning our time, so uh, that's about 12 hours later on the other side of the ocean. October 11th to October 22nd, almost 11-day full mission in space. That was underrated as a longest mission up to that time, I believe. No, 14 of Apollo 6.
As
of course,
Walt Cunningham said, it was the longest test flight of the
Apollo
manned space
7
program.
was 14, yeah,
Thank you.
days there. So outside of the Gemini 14-day mission, this was quite an ordeal. And you know something, you get bored probably. Particularly Frank Borman and Jim Lovell said they were bored to tears. They didn't take enough books with them. You don't have these things hanging around 1968 to entertain you, to say, well, I'll read what's going on, blah, blah, blah. And so I could see where, like, Walt Cunningham get a little, oh, yeah, same old mountains there looking at us again. But Wally knew that he aced the test on this. Look at that smile on his face.
Oh yeah, yeah, absolutely.
There on there. So, and there they are, picture of their suits. And there you threw in there. And so speak of some of the comments that we have are, let's see, that they had issues. Chris Kraft had issues with Wally as to who's actually in control of the mission. Wally's position was after that he was in charge of the mission, and also a comment about Walt Cunningham. Somebody wants to know, stuck by the decisions of his commander, and it may have cost him his career.
Mm-hmm.
Now, these are things that are written in the urban legends and in lots of books and so forth. There was, so speak of that to our friends out there today.
Well, as I mentioned earlier, the controversy had grown between the ground and the crew, particularly when it came to these last-minute changes to the flight plan that were being made. It was all started off, from what Wally said, it was all started off before launch. Now, there were criteria on ground level winds. Now, the worry about ground level winds was if you had to trigger an abort using the launch abort tower. When the parachutes opened up, you didn't want the wind to be carrying you in the wrong direction, because if that capsule made a hard landing on the ground, those couches only had one stroke. And if you bounced a couple of times, there was really a fear that you could injure yourself badly, maybe break your back or even break your neck. So Wally, pre-flight, had said many times, now, we're going to stick by these wind conditions, right? We're going to stick by these rules as far as winds are concerned. And he was sure, yes, yes. Well, on launch day, during the countdown, the winds went past the agreed to limit, and flight control waived the requirements. They said we're going to launch anyway. That was the first thing that got under Wally's jaw, and rightfully so.
Didn't know
So
that.
subsequently, when they got up on orbit and all these new extra procedures started coming up, that pretty much pushed Wally over the edge. And he said at one point, he said, I want to go on record right now that I'm going to be onboard flight director deciding how many of these tests we're going to do, what we're going to do, and we're not going to do anything we're not going to do any of these things that were dreamt up at the last minute and put together haphazardly. And the other crew members, Walt and Don, kind of mirrored this attitude. Now, there's an understanding with a flight crew. You certainly don't disagree with the commander, and you back the commander. And part of that, well, it's difficult to say, but you might end up mirroring the attitude of your commander, right or wrong. And it's said that this is where Walt and Don Isley went wrong, because they kind of carried on Wally's attitude on these things. And one of the guys, I can't remember who, when they were arguing about one of these last minute procedures, one of the guys said, we get the feeling that the people who come up with these last minute changes are the same people who've been dropping the ball for the last 3 years. A direct reference to the fire. And the house rule was you never stuck the fire in another guy's face because it was everybody's fault. And for a crew member to say that, especially on an open mic to mission control, was not well thought of. I remember the flight director, who years later, when talking about it, he said that attitude was arrogant, and frankly, it was insubordinate. And he did not have a forgiving remembrance of that, even as far as far into the future. But again, I've always said that I understood Wally Schirra's attitude about all this, and the idea that you can just suddenly throw in an extra firing of the SPS engine when there are all kinds of procedures that have to lead up to that and checklists that have to be done, temperatures, pressures, fuel supply, electrical, and all the rest of that stuff has to be gone over with a fine-tooth comb. And it's not just a small thing. Like I say, you don't turn a dial and push a button. A lot more to it than that. So I can understand the crew's consternation of being handed these procedures at the last minute like that.
Well, good. That gives you some good insight there. That excellent synopsis there. Gosh, if it started with him wondering the winds are too high, if we have to abort, we can break our backs. Thought we talked about that one.
They talked about it extensively beforehand.
Now you're not going to do that. Larger than life after his missions. He famously wiped a tear away beside Walter Cronkite when his friends landed on the moon. I'll never watch that. I get goosebumps thinking about that right there.
Yeah, that had to be an amazing time for him to
that was von Braun
being witness to that moment in history. And as you say, it was something that he could have easily been assigned to, but he'd made his decision well before that, and I think he was comfortable with it. I don't think he had any regrets about not walking on the moon. I think he was very happy and satisfied with all the accomplishments of his career, not only as an astronaut, but also as a test pilot and naval aviator. So I can remember a description of Wally from, of all places, People magazine, when they were at an event for the premiere of The Right Stuff, and they described Wally as the handsome former astronaut who is aging gracefully. And that was probably a pretty good description of him, because he was a fellow, as I say again, very comfortable with himself, nothing to prove to anyone or to himself. In his post-astronaut life, very easygoing, very humorous. You could always get a good story from him.
There's a picture with
the Gordon Cooper, that was here at the visitors complex. There was our old display of the external tank and solid rocket boosters in the background.
He kept all his hair, that's for one, aging gracefully.
This would be at a memorial, or the ceremony for the Hall of Fame induction.
Yeah, I see it hanging around their neck.
Back in those days, we did those outside. We did those outdoors.
And here's a fun here's a fun picture.
Dee O'Hara, the nurse during the Mercury program during Wally's time.
He liked the flamboyant shirt. I see him in a lot of...
Wally liked flamboyant everything.
Okay.
Yeah. I think he was similar to Pete Conrad in that, if you can't be good, be colorful. But Wally was good and colorful. And here he is at a shuttle launch. I can't remember which flight that was. But again, he could watch these shuttle launches and enjoy them. And people would say, God, do you wish you were up there? And he'd say, no, I had my time.
Yeah.
And the perfect picture of Wally. If you had to encapsulate Wally's personality in one picture, this is it.
That's a good one.
Literally with the white scarf flowing in the wind from the driver's seat of the Corvette.
Yeah, he has a very good autograph too. Yeah. Very clear, confident, and the scarf flying there. His book is a good one, and it's one of my favorites. I can't remember the name of it.
Schirra's Space.
Schirra's Space. He talks about having a Maserati instead of a Corvette, and there was a big gotcha done to him when he needed a new wheel
Yeah,
for
they
it.
gave him the old Conestoga wagon wheel instead.
Yeah,
That was,
he had to get one from Italy from
yeah,
Mr. Maserati, and when he opened up the box, it was like a, yeah, it wasn't the right wheel in there. And of course, we honor our astronauts. That's how our museum started, with the handprints. The only place in the world you can put your handprints on Wally Schirra's, and I did a few hours ago to see how mine sized up, and about perfect match,
it's
really.
kind of our version of Grauman's Chinese Theater in Hollywood.
It is, it
Yeah.
is, it is. And there he is at the Apollo. Of course, he's at the Gemini.
Mhm.
All three places there with space workers. I don't recognize any of those names there, but that's what we're all about, is celebrating the space workers
Yeah.
at Spaceview Park and here at our museum. And uh, yes, then that is Chris Callie's dad, Paul, playing around with a giant mural he did of Wally back in the day.
Yeah, this is a painting representation of a photograph that was taken of Wally on
Mm-hmm.
board the when they were doing practice recoveries at sea during the run up to Gemini 6.
Excellent. You know exactly where that image
Exactly,
was
yeah.
copied from.
Very famous picture.
Yeah, and Paul Callie did these giant portraits of the Mercury astronauts for some event, and his son Chris said they probably just got thrown away when they were
That
done
is
with it.
criminal. That
Yeah.
is criminal, the way we do not take care of our space
Yeah.
history, and especially art like that, which should be on display somewhere. I mean, I see something like this in a space museum
Oh,
or in an naval aviation museum. I'm sure that's where Wally would love to see it displayed.
absolutely.
But to think that something like that was just discarded afterwards, that's criminal.
Yeah, well, Chris doesn't, you met Chris, artist in his own right. We talked about the Kármán line in Theodore von Kármán, 100 kilometers, 62 miles, as physicists determined as outer space. Put a picture of the postage stamp up there. Chris had done the postage stamp, Callie, the von Kármán line.
Well, you know, another interesting point about Theodore von Kármán, he was the one who predicted that an aircraft going through exceeding the sound barrier would create an overpressure and a sonic boom.
Didn't know that.
He was the
That's
one who
cool.
predicted the sonic boom,
Huh.
long before it happened,
Yeah. In 1947 on Miss Glenna.
on Glamorous Glenn.
Glamorous Glenna. What year was that?
That was 1947 with Chuck Yeager.
Yeah,
at the
Chuck
controls,
Yeager. I was wondering, Glamorous Glenna, his wife. And here with my encounter with Wally in a hologram out there at the Kennedy Space Center Visitors Complex. When you first walk in, the building to the left is the Hall of Fame. And they have quite a elaborate display there. And you can bring up the hologram and take a picture with a few of your heroes there in there. So thank you, everybody, for watching today. Are you a turtle? Carlton Bailey knows that he's a turtle out there. Say, we had some people watching today. Why don't you give them a shout out in your educator voice
make
there?
me take out my glasses
Oh,
again.
well, there you go.
Jerk.
Great show. Thank you so much, Nick. Everybody. Cliff
got-
Watson just joined us.
R.G. Jubilee, Dave Stange, Tom Usiak, Mark Dell, Doug Forrest, Steve Yoakams, Tom Celentano, the usual suspects, as I say, Gary Gerald, Robert Law, Carlton Bailey, CB is out there, Chris Callie, Cliff Watson, Oliver Brown, and let's see, what's that last name there? Is this one of our new people here?
Chicken rice nugget.
Okay.
And set it up and blow it up.
Chicken rice nuggets. Set it up and blow it up. Well, no comment.
And Robert Law, you said that, I think, on there, up in
Yeah.
Dundee, Scotland.
And
Hey,
hopefully Tammy and Bill are out there with us somewhere.
good.
Yeah, I hope so.
Excellent out there. And you'll be wrangling astronauts back at the campus there. Who you got this week?
Well, see, this week we've got Joni Higginbotham. She'll be joining us.
Oh, great.
I'll be back a week from tomorrow. I'm on vacation right now, as a matter of fact.
Okay.
And I'll be working, when I get back, I'll be working again with Charlie Walker. And Charlie Walker, looking back in history, Charlie Walker is the first shuttle astronaut I ever met.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Well,
And
we want to have dinner with him at Durango, so
And
we'll set that up.
Charlie was with me on the day that I flew on the 0G airplane which was July 21st, which was the anniversary of Gus Grissom's flight on Liberty Bell 7,
Oh, wow.
which was a special date for both of us. So after I flew the flight, I came back to the visitor center and told them all about it.
Well, Charlie Walker, a good astronaut.
Yeah.
One of the first ones that I got to take out to dinner here, and now it's a regular thing. He's a great conversationalist. He really is a very interesting man, and I think he should be in that Hall of Fame. He did 3 missions as a missions
Payload specialist.
payload specialist,
Yeah.
because no other astronaut wanted to run the electrophoresis machine, so they sent him up there. But he did 3 missions 18 months apart. Woo! No one's done that.
Well, Charlie, highly skilled, and again, case of the right person, the right place at the right time. Just the ideal. If you were going to choose a payload specialist for 3 flights like that, Charlie would have to win it hands down.
Yep. Maybe we'll get him on here again. He's done a couple of shows with us, and we love him to death. So thank you, Nick. What an
Okay, yeah,
awesome
thank you
job
very
there. I know everybody enjoyed it there. Marty's got one more question going out.
Yeah. Besides that, we have Woodwind 2 is watching, and so is Miss World 7912 is also watching, and Susan Kilrain is out there today and tomorrow.
Oh, okay, yeah, that's
And,
right.
She does an excellent talk.
We had a chance to talk because earlier she did the Fly with an Astronaut, which she really enjoyed doing. And when we were talking during her last appearance, which was some time ago, I had mentioned the fact that some of our astronauts have made little introductory videos, 1-minute video. It's, some kind of visual highlights of their career and so forth. Steve Smith has a good one. Marcos Pontes has a good one. So she came up with one. And man, it is kick-ass as far as, and it is just incredible because it covers her naval career, flying in the Intruder and also flying the F-14 Tomcat, and then of course her space career. And it's got this great musical soundtrack, which is high energy. So that's part of her presentation now.
And they played it today.
Yeah.
Who's out there?
Susan Kilrain.
Oh, Susan Kilrain. Oh, okay. Absolutely. I want to go see her maybe tomorrow then.
It's tomorrow or next year.
Yeah.
Tomorrow or next year.
Tomorrow or next year.
Yes,
Okay.
It comes once a year.
Her last day's tomorrow.
Yes.
Okay. And there's like 5 women coming in January.
Yeah.
So good for you, Winston Scott. Okay. Going to watch Winston play his trumpet tomorrow night.
Good.
At the
Okay.
Italian American Club.
Super.
Something we do regularly. He's a lot of fun. So there you go. Move to Florida, come to the Space Coast, get involved with our family here. You know you want to, but we'll have some fun. And now the rainy season's over. Hooray, hooray, the weatherman
Beautiful
said.
weather
So,
out there right now.
yeah. So again, thanks to Nick Thomas for spending his time sharing these wonderful stories with you. Tell other people to watch it over if you want on our American Space YouTube channel. We've done 1,390th episode is now in the books, Marty. So thank you for your help, Marty. 1,390 is the episode you've been on about 15 or 20 of them. And that's why we're growing, is having guests like this to share with you. So got a week of some other guests lined up. I'll rattle them off later. We'll come back tomorrow. Same time, same station, okay, here in the studios of the American Space Museum in downtown Titusville. I'm Mark Marquette, thanking you for watching today and saying I can't wait to see you in our museum to bridge the space between us.